Hi there, I'm Jamie Williams from Gerald Thomas Chartered Accountants, and as of today's date, which is the 6th of May 2020, there are a number of government support packages available for people and businesses who have been affected by the pandemic. There's lots of information out there on the government website and from other sources, but what I'm going to do today is go through each of the packages and just summarise what they mean. So the main areas we're going to look at today are the grants and loans available, the wages, including the job retention scheme, some of the tax deferral schemes available as well. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the grants and loans available. We've got the grant funding and rate relief. Now it says Wales there, but there's a very similar scheme in England. So any retail, leisure and hospitality businesses will get 100% rate relief. That means paying no business rates in the 2021 tax year. There's also grants available of either £10,000 or £25,000, and this will be paid to businesses who have premises that are registered to pay business rates, and it'll depend on the value of the rateable property. Now, some councils are automatically paying because this is devolved to local councils. Some are automatically paying based on the information they've got already, and some, including Swansea and Neath Talbot, have application forms on their website. So if you have a rateable premises that you trade from and you haven't yet looked at this, have a look on your local council website to see if there's an application form to fill in. We also have the Economic Resilience Fund. Now this is a Welsh Government initiative. It's currently paused as of today because the application volume was so high, and it's of grants of £10,000 or £100,000. Now we don't know yet if this is going to come back live into the future. We've now got the coronavirus bounce back loans, and you can borrow up to 25% of your turnover, up to £50,000. This is guaranteed 100% by the government, and there will be no personal guarantees involved. The application process is very simple. So you apply through your business bank. The application form will take between 5 and 10 minutes, and talking to certain clients who've done this, the money can be in your bank within 24 hours. So it's a great way of getting money very quickly. It's interest free and repayment free for the first 12 months. After that, there's a 6-year term at 2.5% with no arrangement fees and no early payment fees. So it's a cheap way of getting some debt funding into the business where it's needed. We've got now the coronavirus business interruption loan schemes. These came before the bounce back loan schemes. These are guaranteed up to 80%. The application process is more of a traditional nature, where there will be information requested from your bank, potentially projections into the future to show how you're going to pay these back as and when we release from this pandemic. There's two different levels of it. There's the large scheme and the small scheme, depending on your turnover. We've got the corporate financing facility. This is for very large companies where the Bank of England will effectively buy bonds from you in the form of short-term debt. And we've got the coronavirus future fund. This is aimed at businesses who haven't been able to get any loans under the business interruption schemes. It's mainly aimed at businesses who have raised capital within the last 5 years, as in equity funding. They'd have had to have raised 250,000 in equity in the last 5 years, and often the scheme will involve the government match funding the payments that have come in the form of equity. Now moving on to some of the wages packages that are available. Coronavirus job retention scheme, which has been getting a lot of airtime in the press. It's that the government will pay out 80% of monthly wage costs up to £2,500 a month per employee. Now, this is for employees who have been furloughed, and what a furlough effectively means is that if not for this scheme, then the employees would have either had to have been laid off, made redundant, or they would have had to be put on unpaid leave. Now, the portal has been available for a number of weeks. It is available to employees who were on a payroll submission before the 19th of March. The pay-in times are around 6 to 7 days after application. One of the things to note is that you can only make an application every 3 weeks, and that an employee needs to be on furlough for a full 3-week period for them to qualify. We've got the statutory sick pay. Prior to the pandemic, statutory sick pay was not reimbursed by the government. There is a scheme live now where the statutory sick pay can be reclaimed if an employee was off sick due to the coronavirus. The portal isn't yet open, but we'll be keeping you updated when it does come available. We've got the self-employed income support scheme. Well, this isn't wages as such, but it is wages for people who are either self-employed or trade through a partnership. So it's going to be a taxable grant of 80% of the average monthly taxable profits. And it's going to be a single instalment covering 3 months, and it says you're due June 2020, but in the last day or so there has been rumours that it's going to be paid out possibly by the end of May now. The application portal is going to be live on the 13th of May, and one thing to note is that agents, as in accountants, aren't going to be able to make the application on behalf of their clients through our agent portal. It's going to be through the client's own government gateway. So if you use an accountant now and you haven't got your own government gateway set up, it might be worth looking at setting up that government gateway so that on the 13th of May you're ready to make that application. One of the main eligibility criteria of this scheme is that a tax return for 18-19 has had to have been submitted, and that the self-employment was the main bulk of your income, so over 50% of your income. Now, if you've recently started self-employment, say after April 2019, so that you haven't got an 18-19 return and only a 19-21, then unfortunately you won't qualify for this scheme. My wife is in a similar situation because she set up in June 2019. She's done a 19-20 return, but because she hasn't got an 18-19 return, she won't qualify, unfortunately, for the scheme. And finally, let's have a look at some of the tax schemes available. We've got deferring VAT payments. It's any VAT due between the 20th of March and the 30th of June can now be deferred until the 31st of March 2021. Effectively, what that means is VAT returns for the quarters February, March and April 2020 can be deferred. We've got a specialist helpline for time to pay arrangements for anyone who is struggling to meet taxes that are still due and haven't been deferred, and there's that specialist helpline number on the screen. We've got the second payment on account, which would have been due 31st of July 2020. Now that has been delayed until January 31st 2021, and when we say delayed, it's a payment on account, so it'll depend on your 19-20 income as to whether that still will be paid or not. One thing I think we need to make note of here is all of the schemes that have been explained. Some of the grant schemes are classed as state aid. Now, when you receive state aid, this will have an impact on a research and development tax relief claim under the SME scheme. The state aid will depend on whether it is notified or de minimis, but either way it will have some form of impact on a claim under the SME scheme. So what we are suggesting is, before you take the grant, if you do R&D claims on a yearly basis, double check to see what the impact will be before you go ahead and take that money, because it could well mean that you take the grant, then you can't claim under the SME scheme, but you actually would have been better off not taking the grant and making an accelerated SME claim. So that is our brief summary of the support packages available. If you do want to get in touch with us to find out more detail on any of the support packages, our information is available here on this slide. Or if you want to chat about anything else business and accountancy related, please do get in touch. Stay safe.